We're live. The hour being 7 p.m. on Monday, July 27th, 2020. I would like to call the Laconia City Council meeting to order. Before we go too far, of course, we must read the introduction for electronic meetings. So if you can bear with me, we'll get through this and we'll get into the good stuff. As mayor of the Laconia City Council, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis, in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are, A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All council members have the ability to communicate during this meeting through the Zoom platform, and the public has access to watch the live YouTube video at https://www.youtube.com/LaconiaNH. Listen to this meeting through dialing the following phone number, 1-646-558-8656, or participate by the Zoom app, webinar ID 864-2993-7427, password, secret password 075794. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting using Zoom, and instructions are provided on the City of Laconia's website at www.laconianh.gov. That is not a secret password either from the Zoom webinar. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 524-3877, extension 249, or email at cityclerk@laconianh.gov. And D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states his presence, also please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I will ask our very able city clerk, Cheryl Hebert, to call the roll.
President in the council chamber.
Can't hear the.
Can't hear Cheryl.
Counselor Janey.
Present in council chambers.
Counselor Littman.
Present. Home.
Counselor Haynes.
Physically present in the council chamber.
You're muted. I'll say it. Now say it.
Present and in the council chamber.
Thank you. Counselor Hamel.
Present at home and alone.
Thank you. Counselor Felch.
Here at home, just me and my cat.
Mayor Hosmer.
I'm here, physically present in the council chambers. Before we go any farther, I'd like to salute the flag, and I'd like to lead this evening. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Staff in attendance this evening is the aforementioned City Clerk Cheryl Hebert at the council table, also City Manager Scott Myers and Glenn Smith, ably running our IT and AV operation. Moving along to Number 7A. Regular meeting minutes of July 13th, 2020. The minutes of the meeting were distributed to the City Council on Thursday, July 16th, 2020, with no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk. The minutes will be accepted as distributed. I must say, it's remarkable how fast the minutes get turned around. I'm always impressed when I look at those dates, and they do come out pretty quickly, and they're spot on. We are moving into number 9 on our agenda, which is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If there's something not on tonight's agenda, general public, and you would like to speak to it, please raise your hand and give an opportunity. Terrific. Representative St. Clair, glad you could join us this evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Am I coming through okay? Hello?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to speak, I think some of you know, I wanted to speak about the traffic plan for Motorcycle Week between August 22nd and the 30th. It wasn't until, well, at the last meeting, it was announced with all the decisions that were made at that time that there would be discussion amongst myself or representatives of the Motorcycle Week Association and the city manager, the mayor, perhaps a couple of council members, the fire chief, the police chief, and we would be discussing that. As you all know by now, that never happened. I've been waiting for it to happen. And it wasn't until this past Friday morning that I found out from the city manager that, in fact, apparently a decision had already been made and that there was going to be no change for the traffic during Motorcycle Week. In other words, it would be just well, like it was this weekend. That really took me off guard, gentlemen. And after some discussions with a couple of you and some other people, there was an attempt started by one of the businesses up at Weirs Beach to have another petition started. That started Sunday evening. It finished today. Had we known about this and we were going to go at it from this direction, I'm sure that we could have had hundreds of signatures from Laconia residents and businesses. As it is, there are approximately 18 businesses. I think you'll see it at the petition if you're if you have the petitions, you'll see that one of the businesses signed 3 separate times, and I realize that that can't count. So I believe they had a total of 18 businesses. I believe you're maybe have a letter written by one of the businesses up at the Weirs where 2 other businesses were mentioned, where they weren't really wanting anything changed during that week because they were concerned about, I don't know. I actually don't know what they're concerned about. And actually, again, in private with some of you, and that would mean also with the chief of police and the fire chief. And also, I'm pretty sure we talked about this on citizen comments, that if things during Motorcycle Week, during the days of the weekdays, if all of a sudden there was no motorcycle traffic, we could make changes then. I realize, well, I shouldn't say I realize, I understand the concern of some people that you don't want a lot of people up at Weirs Beach, apparently on motorcycles. And my thought about that was when I looked up there the last couple of weeks, we certainly don't seem to be as concerned about all that traffic. Maybe you are, maybe you're concerned about it, but there's been no action taken about it. And I guess we could have had action like maybe block off every other parking space to cut down the amount of cars on Lakeside Avenue. I didn't hear anybody bring that up. I don't know what that would achieve other than cutting back down car traffic. So I don't know if I'm making my point there. I realize that the beach has now gone from 400 people to 1,000 people. Maybe that'll cut back on the lines formed up there to have people get on the beach. Again, my point being that I don't know why we're picking and choosing what to be concerned about as far as people on Lakeside Avenue. I appreciate very much what has been done. The fact that We'll be able to have our rally headquarters tent up there. I'm sure the nonprofits in the area are very appreciative of that. I think what the city did with regards to outside vendors makes perfect sense. And beer tents too, perfect sense. I get that. We're making progress in getting social distancing information out there, and we're also looking into getting more washing stations, hand sanitizer stations, and stuff like that. But that's all been discussed in the past. What I'm concentrating on is the traffic pattern for Motorcycle Week. In the 30 years that we've been doing this pattern, well, since 1993 in any event, one of the best things that we did was to make traffic one way. And the reason we did it one way was so that there was not a cluster there at the Weirs Beach sign with people jockeying to get out onto Route 3 with no police protection, no traffic light. That's why we did it one way, and it goes all out to Watson Road where there is a traffic light. And again, if you were up there anytime on, not just this weekend, but any busy summer day, you see people doing that. You know, it's just like a jump start. Can I go? Can I make it? And we have a lot of close if up there. We always have. That's just the way it is. So as a way to mitigate that, we made the traffic one way. If if you don't want center line parking, I understand that too. But that's something I think we can work on and try to work out something if we have a meeting that we can work on and come to an agreeable situation with that. I also have heard from people on Tower Hill that they're most concerned about Tower Hill being the street being open during those dates because they expect a lot of motorcycles to be going up and down that street. The reason we closed Tower Hill Street is because of several accidents that have happened over there before the street was closed off. If you haven't been up that street, we've got a couple of manhole covers up there that are probably a good 6 inches down below the level of the pavement for whatever reason. Not a safe situation on just for general traffic, not to mention just an overload of traffic like that. These are just things that I would like to have discussed, maybe can still discuss, and we can try to work this thing out. And one last thing, which I'm going to jump out of Motorcycle Week, but this would also be involved with Motorcycle Week. I know that when we brought the kiosk up there several years ago, we pointed out to the city council, of which several of you were members, and stated that we wondered how it was going to work with motorcycles. And the signs up there state by the space. So when people get their little ticket, they put their space in and they put it on their vehicle. And it has come to my attention, and probably this has been going on for a while and I wasn't aware of it, but it's come to my attention through some very unhappy visitors this past a week ago today, who 3 motorcycles, they purchased a ticket, they put it on one of the motorcycles, and the 2 other motorcycles parked in the space. That is normal business around the country. But for whatever reason, 2 of those motorcycles got parking tickets, $15 tickets. As a citizen, never mind my job, I just find that unacceptable. And I think either better signage should be put up there to indicate that, yeah, in Laconia, we're a little different here than most places. And you got 3 vehicles in there, 3 motorcycles. And you know what? You each got to go and get a ticket if the machine will kick it out. I hope the council looks at that again. I don't think that's a good way. If it's a matter of trying to raise money, it would be better to raise the rates. Make them $10 an hour, make them $15 an hour, but don't bait and switch people so they're confused, thinking, well, in a normal area, we would be doing what those 3 visitors did. I just find that unacceptable, and I hope the council looks at that. I don't know what you now. I don't know what you're going to do for Motorcycle Week. Maybe you plan on leaving the meters all on, and not the meters, but the kiosk. And I want to remind you, since 1993, there's never been a charge for parking on Lakeside Avenue during the rally. Again, I realize the city is not saying that the rally is taking place, but it's just something to think about. People have been conditioned. We've had many of the same visitors here over the years. And I just think it's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths. So with that, I hope we are able to have a meeting with the parties that were named in the last city council meeting before any hard decisions are made. And I know time is getting short, so I hope we can we can jump on this. With that, I'll take any questions if there are any, Mr. Mayor, and if not, I'll just say so long.
Thank you for your input. I'll defer to Scott Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very quickly, 2 points. No decision had been made about a traffic pattern for Motorcycle Week. It was included in the last resolution that it would be discussed. It was actually Representative St. Clair who brought it up to me after a breakfast with the police chief and the city councilor on Friday morning and said, I guess we're good to go with the normal Motorcycle Week traffic pattern. And I said, normal meaning what happens 51 weeks a year, or normal meaning what happens in Motorcycle Week? And he said, no, what happens in Motorcycle Week? Everybody's in favor of it. And my answer was, I've not heard of too many people who are in favor of it or any in favor of it. No decision was made. He brought it to me that everybody was on board with that pattern. I just want to assure the council and the public that we know it's a conversation and a meeting that needs to be had, and we haven't had it yet. And this all came about because of Representative St. Clair bringing it up to me on Friday morning in my office. Second of all, with regard to display on the meters, we don't have a pay and display system that requires a ticket to be on someone's windshield or on someone's dash. We pay by the spot. So when our parking enforcement people go around and look at, they just look for an expired spot, whether a certain space number has money in the kiosk or not. You don't have to have the display on your dashboard, and we tell people that at the kiosk. So to say that only one display was had and the other motorcycles got tickets, that is not how our system operates, and nobody goes around looking for displays on dashboards. So if that is happening to motorcyclists, I would strongly encourage them to contact my office, and we can certainly rectify that situation. But I have not heard that anywhere in all of the years that we've had the kiosks. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Any other comment on items not on tonight's agenda? Apparently we have a caller in. Maybe if you could identify yourself, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Good evening. This is Megan Doptis. I'm the general manager of Tower Hill Tavern, the Big House, and Weirs Beach Tattoo Company. Hope everyone's doing well this evening.
Welcome, Megan. It's nice to hear your voice.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to hear all of you as well and to participate in all of these things. Being there in the heart of the Weirs, we hear all the banter and all the conversation and all the, ideas, opinions, beliefs, and everything of all the locals, the tourists, the business owners, everybody. Bike Week has obviously been for the entire summer a huge topic, whether it be the actual Bike Week, non-Bike Week, as everyone was calling it, and the Bike Week that's coming up. Of course, people are upset about vendors, but that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling to talk also about the same things that Charlie St. Clair was mentioning about the traffic and the parking. We are worried. Local business owners are worried. Visitors that come every year, I had even a couple today from New York that will be here, are worried. The safety of the motorcyclists. So in addition to, parking not being available for bikes because of all the vehicles, worried about the safety. I drive down Lakeside Avenue every single day. I work down there, even though I live an hour away. Even today, I almost got in 2 accidents just driving down there from the sign to Tower Hill by Tower Hill Street and Lakeside. People backing out, not looking. Now, had I been a bike, had I been looking to the right, maybe I would have been hit. Then we can't say that, and I understand that. But, Charlie did mention it's been going on since 1993, the same parking patterns and whatnot. And I think that for everyone's safety, especially with taking into consideration the fact that all the extra details will not be present that week, which I've been told through local authorities like UNH and everyone's not going to be there, that to have it go one way to avoid and protect ourselves and the riders from possible accidents, even though there's always that possibility, which I understand, makes a lot more sense than to just have normal traffic that day. I mean, there's cars, I leave sometimes 4 or 5 a.m. there's cars already lining up waiting to get onto the beach with the numbers that we have and everything. And a lot of people are from out of town and, you know, aren't aware or don't, you know the extent of the riding people that are around. I think that, I don't know, it's just a big concern. It's just what I've been hearing about a lot in the last few weeks. And we did find out just recently about it, and we passed around that petition to be signed. And, you know, given a few more days, given another week, I definitely could have gotten probably at least 1,000, if not more, signatures from local residents and New Hampshire residents, but not to mention out-of-town residents that come up every year. So I'm just calling in to say that we, as Weirs Beach businesses, the ones I've spoken to, believe that it would be safer and make more sense to have the same traffic patterns that we have had for 27 years, because that's also what people know and they're used to. And a lot of people come here just for Bike Week to be a part of the oldest rally in the country, and to change everything up and risk more accidents happening. It just seems a little over the top to me, to us. And I just wanted to voice that opinion and tell you, excuse me, how I feel about that. And on the separate note, to make an addendum to what Charlie said, I received the complaint from the 2 cyclists that got the ticket parked in the same spot as the one that did pay for the ticket. They were under the assumption that you pay for the spot, it's however much in that spot, and they back in. So the bikes, you can fit 3 or 4, but they were very upset and disgruntled, which it didn't make sense to me, and I definitely said that I would say something to people about it. We had I think it was Animal Control was down there this past weekend, couple weekends, passing out tickets, and the guys were very upset. So I don't know, I don't really understand it, and I'm not parking or have nothing to do with it, and it's not my business, but I just figured I would go along with what Charlie St. Clair said about that, because they were very angry and told me all about their feelings and emotions about it. But I do appreciate your time, as always, listening to me and my opinions. And thanks for showing up today.
Thank you, Megan, and I appreciate your input as always. Any other public comments on items not on tonight's agenda? Is there anyone who has yet to speak who would like to speak before someone speaks a second time?
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yes. Councilor
I
Lippman.
just would ask if Manager Myers could address the last comment about the tickets again, just to reinforce what he was saying earlier for the public's benefit.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Lippman. So again, the city does not do a traditional pay and display approach to parking where you go to a kiosk, you need to print off a ticket and present it on your dashboard where it's time stamped as to when it was purchased. Our operators have a handheld device. They can look at spaces as they're walking down the street, and they can see that if a certain number of space has time in the kiosk, or in essence, time in the meter or not. It's not a display on 2 or 3 or 4 motorcycles in one spot or one 4-wheeled vehicle in one spot. There's either money in the meter or there's not. If there's not money in the meter, there is 1 ticket written for an expired meter. So our folks who are doing parking enforcement do not walk around and look at dashboards or look at dashboard areas on motorcycles to see who's displaying the ticket. It's not how we operate. It's never how we've operated. And again, if that is happening to someone, please refer them to my office. Again, I think this is our 3rd or 4th year of kiosks. And if this was a regular occurrence, I'm sure we would have been hearing about it far more often than now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Representative St. Clair, if you would like to chat with us again. Representative St. Clair, are you with us?
Hi, yes, I was going to respond to the city manager's comments about our meeting. Apparently, I had everything upside down. I'm not sure how I did that, but as it is, I'll just wait to see how this all plays out. Thank you.
Who has? No one, thank you.
What's
Seeing that no one else has raised his or her hand to speak, we will now move on to number 10A, which is interviews. Brian Wolf, who is seeking an appointment as a regular member of the Water Commission for a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2023. Currently, there's one vacant regular member position on the Water Commission, and filling this position is of time-sensitive nature. If the mayor and the council agree to waive the council's normal procedure for interviewing candidates at the first meeting of the month and officially appointing them at the second appointment, of Mr. Wolf will be taken up later on at this agenda. Not sure if that's what I was supposed to read, but I did. Anyway, Mr. Wolf, are you with us?
Yes.
Well, welcome. Thank you for your willingness to serve on the very important Water Commission, and love to have just a brief introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you would like to serve.
Certainly. I've been a citizen of Laconia for 13 years. My last 2 trips past the city council were several years ago, so at least a few familiar faces are still there, where I participated in the building of the water access on Water Street for boat launches, and for the first city council approval of milfoil treatment in the lakes that are within the Laconia community. I volunteered to continue in the spirit of volunteering the community when they saw the opening, and would enjoy the opportunity to participate and volunteer as a member of the Water Commission. I work for the past many years in banking at places like Citibank, Fidelity Investments. Worked for the past 13 years at a company called the Axiom Corporation, where approval of budgets, review of proposals is a very common part of the operation. And from what I understand of the position, what would be required here with some financial acumen, business acumen, the ability to evaluate the proposals from the Water Commission and compare them to the charter of the safety, the reliability, and obviously the cost of safe and reliable water in the city of Laconia.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from councilors right now of Mr. Wolf? Councilor Lippman?
I remember, Brian, you're coming forward on milfoil, and obviously you've taken a strong interest in water quality in this area and its importance. In terms of your current professional position and availability to meet the meeting requirements, could you speak to that?
Certainly. I work currently full-time for a company called the Axiom Corporation, which is a database, data security company where I work there full-time. My understanding is the meetings are required at least 2 times per month prior to normal work hours. I would be happy and available to participate in each of those meetings and any additional services that are required to fulfill the obligations of the position.
Thank you. And have you, Mayor?
I missed that, Councilor Lippman.
I could ask a follow-up question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yes.
And have you spent any time with the Waterworks director in terms of orienting yourself to what the position entails?
I have met with the Public Works Director in preparation and evaluation of the position to become familiar. I have not yet met with the Water Commissioner, but if the council feels that is a good idea and a suggestion, I would be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lippman. Any other questions from councilors? Scott, should we take a vote to take this up under unfinished business right now? Do we need to do that? So we can make an appointment?
I believe, Mr. Mayor, it's actually under elections and appointments, which would be your next item on the agenda. If the council wished to table it and wait the 2 weeks, they could certainly do that, but it's there for your option.
I would prefer if we did not table it. I'd prefer if we took it up under the next agenda item. Councilor Cheney.
I'll move the nomination of Brian Wolf.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on Mr. Wolf? Councilor Hamel.
Yes, Mayor. I think probably what would be appropriate is that the city council makes a motion first to um, waive the council rule first and then do the nomination after that, because the council rule says that you'll do it in the second week. So I think we need a motion to waive that first.
So possible a friendly amendment, or should we step back and start over?
Probably makes sense to go on the record. Just straight vote for that.
All right. So our first motion, I'll be looking for a motion to waive the council rule and waiting 2 weeks to make the appointment of an applicant for an open position. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor
Question.
Cheney?
Oh, so sorry. We have to stop right there.
Yeah.
Councilor Lippman, I apologize.
And what the, I know it's important to have a full, is it? Because they don't have
Councilor
enough.
Lippman, you seem to be breaking up just a little bit, getting half of your sentences.
Yeah, just to clarify, my motion was to waive council rules so we can vote on this now.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just trying to understand in terms of the timing of it. In other words, what's the urgency to take it up tonight? Just want that to be clear.
It's my understanding, Counselor, that Greg Page, who was finishing up as a commissioner, had given notice a while ago, and for several months now, maybe due to the COVID and the meeting and whatever, there were some challenges with getting applicants interested, and Greg has served a long time and been a good commission member, but is truly done with his time. I think the feeling of the water commissioners were, with a new superintendent on board, with this being the middle of construction season with projects going on, that they would benefit by having full board participation, and that was the request.
I think that clarifies it for the public, and I support the motion when it comes to the vote. Thank you.
So seeing no further discussion, unless you want to discuss this further, Councilor Hamel, I see you're unmuted.
No, I'm fine.
No. Okay,
Just
so
open the
I'd
vote.
ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes,
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative. The council rules are,
Mr. Mayor.
yes, 5, I'm so sorry. 5, thank you. The rules will be waived, and we'll move on to the next item. Thank you, Councilor Littman, for the clarification as well. Moving on to number 11A. This would be the aforementioned consideration of appointing Brian Wolf as to the Water Commission for a 3-year term expiring at the end of June 2023. Looking for a motion to approve the appointment of Brian Wolf as a regular member. So made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Any further discussion? Councilor Lippman?
just the clerk, I think, is typing, and we're hearing a lot of typing noise over the speaker here.
I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes,
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative. The motion passes, and Mr. Wolf is now a member of the Water Commission. Mr. Wolf, thank you very much for your willingness to serve. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Look forward to serving the community.
Thank you. Moving right along now, I will reserve my time on the mayor's report so we can move along. We have a sort of a lengthy agenda ahead of us this evening. So I will move on to committee reports. And I'd look for anyone to raise their hand if they would like to make a committee report. Seeing none. Liaison reports.
Mr. Mayor, I was trying to get your attention.
Oh, Council Lippman, I apologize. Don't mean to make a habit of this, but it's happening. Go right ahead, Council Lippman.
The Finance Committee met after the last council meeting and reviewed the refinancing and refunding options. And I believe there's a set of minutes that are now adopted based on time that's gone by with no comment.
Thank you, Council Lippman. Councilor Hamel, are we on liaison reports or committee reports?
Liaison, if that's okay.
I believe that it is, and thank you.
Okay, great. As being on the Parks and Rec Department, it was brought to my attention that the board members there would like to have a review of the kiosks and the charges at the beach. So I said that I would bring that to the council and ask the city manager maybe to get with the groups that are involved with this and to review the charges and maybe also the charges on the Lakeside Ave also. It's been several years since we've looked at that, I believe about 4. But the main thing would be at the beach to get a synopsis of what we're doing there with the kiosks, please.
City manager's giving you the thumbs up. Heard loud and clear. Any other liaison reports? Seeing none, I'd move on to number 18 on our agenda, which is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. Anything on tonight's agenda that you would like to speak to? Now would be the appropriate time. Thank you. Seeing no requests to speak on current agenda items, that will bring us to number 19, which is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So included in your packet tonight is the project update for this agenda, the month of July. And I'm just going to focus on one item, and then I'll touch base on one item that is not on in the project update, but also would come under my report. So the one I'll focus on tonight is the Union Avenue construction. Today we the city placed with our contractor the final wearing course, basically from the intersection at Elm Street and Lakeport up to Messer Street, tied in some of the tip downs with the ADA compliance with those crosswalks. The final wearing course of pavement went down Friday on the stretch from Elm Street to Stark Street. So other than a little handwork and some small tie-in of driveways and connecting in there, and then maybe some sod and seating and punch list items, the major construction on Union Ave is behind us. And here we are in the latter part of July. I know the council's aware, but I think it warrants saying again that a combination of the early spring weather this year with the economy being for the most part shut down and schools closed and not a lot of traffic, we were able to get a jump start on Union Avenue on the specifically in the retaining wall area, and caused a little bit of inconvenience, but gained many weeks on the project by doing it simultaneously with the Weirs Bridge without really creating additional hardship. And this in total, we think knocked somewhere between 4 and 5 weeks off the project, which if you think of that, it would have pushed it to probably around the 1st of September. So we appreciate everybody's patience. I think it looks great. Again, a few punch list and tie-in items, but the lion's share of the work on Union Ave and that whole stretch is going to look great once everything gets finalized. So thanks to everybody involved, and Wes and Krista at Public Works and Busby for a great project there. The other item I have for you, I sent the council and the mayor an email this morning regarding to some direction you provided me to follow up with the ownership at Lakeport Landing on the brick facade on the fire tower. I did go down and met with Erica Blizzard in person last week. Councilor Felch was also there, and she gave us a tour of the building and some of the features. So we talked about the brick. She identified why the attempts to have it done were not workable, either through the construction or warranty for being 40 or 50 feet up in the air on the tower. So I asked her to put some of those comments just to format them in writing, which I shared with you today. So the answer is we had the conversation. It was a very pleasant conversation, very impressed with the showroom and a very busy summer that she's having. I'll get off track 1 second, but the challenge they're having now is the boat manufacturers can't keep up with producing boats right now. So whatever inventory is available is there. And I was told that people are expecting February deliveries for boats they're ordering now. So maybe not so much for this boat season, but that's tied into the manufacturing. So that is the response to the directive from council to me. I did reach out to our city legal counsel Friday and got a response back today to provide you with a framework of what legal expense we might incur should we choose to take the matter to court to try to resolve it in the city's favor with a brick finish. Again, no guarantee that we would be successful, and the framework would depend on various components of how a court case might go, but a range was $2,500 to $10,000 that the city might expect to incur if we went a court route on this. So I will leave it to have council provide either tonight or at a future date any additional guidance that they so choose. And I'd be happy to take questions on that or any other items tonight. Actually, I do have an economic development report in the packet that I forgot about.
Would you like to take questions first before you move on to
Sure,
the
we can
economic?
do that, yeah.
Councilor Cheney.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Before we make a decision about going ahead with legal approach to this Lakeport Landing issue.
Can't hear Bruce.
His mic isn't working.
Can you hear? Whoop.
Yep.
See where I am.
Are you good?
That's
Can you hear
better.
me? Okay.
Yes.
I would ask that before we proceed or determine whether we want to take legal action, if we try one more approach. And that is, although I have some question about the figures that have been provided, regardless, I would ask that we approach Ms. Blizzard and ask if some sort of paint or other approach to at least making the tower red might interest her. Legal fees for us are no less a waste than they would be for her. And I would hope that she might consider at least painting the tower red so that it came close to appearing like a brick tower. I don't want to see her have to spend $50,000 for faux brick, but I still think we had an agreement. She made through her architect made a representation to the city that it would appear a brick, and if red would accomplish that, I would accept that, whether the rest of the council would or not.
So, Councilor Cheney, I'm not sure if that's a question for the city manager or whether this is a motion to be brought at some point. I'm not sure.
I would be looking for consensus of the council if they were to direct me to do that.
I guess, Councilor Cheney, if you'd be just thing.
Oh, Henry, I'm so sorry, but I can't hear you.
Better now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to take off video so it maybe comes across better. I'm just suggesting maybe rather than just paint, but I think in concept what you're trying to do is to get something that looks more like building as it was intended, not necessarily tower that it once was or black that I believe it is today. And so that there's a way to and I guess the issue is, is there anything our city engineers or provide as a perspective as to what would be.
I would accept that as an approach. I don't want to take legal action if that's avoidable.
Yes.
And any approach that offers both sides an opportunity to compromise would appeal to me. So your suggestion, I think, is well taken.
I've heard from folks that are interested in what other developments going down there that they'd like to see it a more complete finish as to what that looks like. And again, I think if you really know the history of it, it's not asking too much.
I agree. So I would make that a motion of sorts and ask if the council would give the manager a consensus to approach Ms. Blizzard with the idea of some effort to make it look more like a brick tower.
So if I hear the motion correctly, let me just make sure I get this straight. The motion is to direct the city manager to approach Ms. Blizzard, I would suspect in writing, asking her to modify the faux tower with perhaps paint or something that would make it at least red.
If I might interrupt,
Please.
I think Henry's suggested that we talk to the city engineer who may be able to offer some alternatives.
I think it's a conversation as well, Mayor. I don't think we need to do it in writing.
Well, I would suggest, since this has been a meandering route from years ago associated with this property, I think it would be in the best interest of all parties that it be reduced to writing and submitted. I would probably have some concerns, at least initially. I'd have to think about it, bringing in the city engineer, directing an aesthetic piece, but that may be for another conversation. But I think writing is probably appropriate.
All due respect, Mayor, we're trying to get to a solution here, not exchange of memos and emails with one another. And I think that the interest of having the engineer or someone from Public Works might be familiar with some materials that might work to accomplish it. I'm trying to get to an end point and put this behind us as opposed to have it drag out and out and out and out. Obviously, there's a couple of councils here that feel strongly that there should be something to address based on the history. And I understand you may not agree, but I'm trying to come to a resolution.
I appreciate your input, Counselor. But what I was saying is I may have some questions about the city engineer getting involved, but I still think this is not a casual conversation over the phone or even in person. If the city wants, hold on just a second, Counselor Littman. If the city is demanding that she do something with her building, I would suggest reducing it to writing at this point would be a good practice based on the history of what's gone on this property.
All due respect, Mayor, I think the council's consensus is to try to work it out and work it out timely, and that whatever's worked out should be reduced to writing, but to just go back and forth with exchange of memos and not trying to really come to a resolution is what I'm trying to suggest here.
My concern is that the time for resolution is waning at this point, and I think it would be in the best interest of the city as well as the property owner to have it in writing, specifically what we're requesting. Leave nothing open to ambiguity or confusion or hearsay. I think that would be a time well spent. It's not prolonging it, but it's just making it abundantly clear what the council's expectations are.
All due respect, Mayor, I support Councilor Cheney's motion and ask that it be voted on by the council one way or the other, up or down.
So be it. I mean, I'm not standing in the way of the vote. I'm just making a recommendation, which I think would be wise. Any further discussion? Yes, Councilor Haynes.
Your Honor.
He's muted.
Muted.
After reading Scott's memo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I can understand Councilor Cheney's concern, but I think she represented that she made a good faith effort of it. I have a hard time with sending the city's engineer to look at someone else's private building. I'm not in favor of this motion. Hold on one second, Councilor Cheney, I'll recognize you when you come off mute. Councilor Cheney.
Are you opposed to including the city engineer or the whole motion about offering her or asking her to consider some other alternative to make it look more like?
I don't have a problem with that consideration, but the city engineer, no.
Okay.
Councilor Hamel.
Yes, I don't think the city engineer is part of Bruce's motion, Councilor Cheney's motion. You know, I would be in favor of just asking if she'd paint it red, and I'd leave it at that. I kind of agree that, you know, I don't think we should send the city engineer out there to look at it. But one last question, you know, to her would be, you know, are you willing to paint red? So I'd be good on that.
Just to be clear for my fellow councilors, it's not.
Hold on. Councilor Littman, go ahead.
Just to be clear for my fellow councilors, it's not that the city engineer would prescribe something. It's that we would tap into their expertise as to what might be a suggestion, not a demand.
Councilor Felch, have you raised your hand to speak?
Yes. I just think, I actually thought brick was going to stand out, but if you paint it red, it's just going to stand out like a sore thumb. And we just keep beating a dead horse with a stick. It's crazy. I just don't get it. She made an effort. I think she's done everything that she could do. And like I said, red is just going to stand out like a sore thumb.
How would red brick be any different than red paint?
Well, you don't have the lines and the, I think the red brick was going to stand out, but I think red paint, a solid red, is definitely going to just stand out.
Well, then I presume you support going ahead with litigation to force red brick.
Well,
no, I don't.
I don't think we're quite there yet. And I don't know if that's
I think
at this point. I think your motion on the floor.
You're muted.
Yeah. Motion on the floor is to make a request of the property owner to paint it some shade of red. So in your mind, I don't want to speak for you, it would look closer to the hose tower. I think that's where we are on the motion.
That's a fair representation.
Okay. So is there any further discussion on this? None. Seeing none, I would ask the clerk to call the roll to determine if we have consensus.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman, I didn't hear
Counselor
you.
Littman, you didn't come through.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
No,
4 votes in the affirmative. This empowers the city manager to make that request of the property owner of Lakeport Marina Landing. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, one more quick report that I failed to recognize, economic development report. In your packet, again, the unemployment at the top, you can see the wild swing over the last couple of months since COVID really set in. So just a little back history. So in April, our unemployment was 23.1% for Laconia, May down to 19.1. To put that in perspective, May of 2019 was 2.6%. So the state numbers are all in the mid to higher teens as well, anywhere anywhere from 14% to 17% for unemployment for county, state, Manchester, and the city of Concord for that same period. We're halfway through the year on the Consumer Price Index Urban, our inflation number. And again, ever since the COVID hit and the economy shut down, we have seen three fairly, I guess I'll call them anemic months in terms of inflation. So again, April, May, and June, we're at 0.3%, 0.1%, and 0.6%. So halfway through the year, inflation is annualized at 1.2%. And that is one of the components that we use in our tax cap calculation. So happy to stop there and take any additional questions councilors may have.
Any questions from councilors? Councilor Cheney, you are live on your mic.
I apologize.
It's okay. Seeing no questions at this time. Thank you. Mr. Myers. Moving along to new business right now under item 20. 20A is the approval of Laconia Baseball Foundation Incorporated facility use agreement and authorization of city manager to sign on behalf of the city. Attached in your packet this evening is an agreement between the city of Laconia and Laconia Baseball Foundation, Inc. for use of the Robbie Mills Sports Complex by the Winnipesaukee Muskrats. This is a 5-year lease ending on April 30th, 2024, but it may be extended by written agreement of the parties for up to 2 additional 1-year terms. The staff recommends approval of this agreement, and the report was submitted by the city manager. City manager, would you like to speak to this briefly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as the mayor stated, this would be an extension between the city and the Winnipesaukee Muskrats. This was reviewed and voted for approval on by the Parks and Recreation Commission. Because of its length and involvement, it does come to the city council for another review and an affirmative vote before it would go into effect. We do have our Parks and Recreation Director, Amy Levisic, is on with us tonight on Zoom. So if there are specific questions related to this document, we will be happy to unmute her and she can provide answers to your questions.
So at this point, I'd be looking for a motion to move to approve the Laconia Baseball Foundation Incorporated facility use agreement as presented and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement on behalf of the city. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Cheney. This is now open to further discussion. Councilor Hamel.
Yes, Scott, I guess got a quick question on way back when the first family that started the baseball thing up there, there was an account opened up at Bank of New Hampshire, or probably Laconia Savings Bank at the time, stating that funds that were above their normal cost of running the team for the year, because they're a nonprofit, would go into this account and would be used for upkeep of the field. I don't think that's ever happened, but I'm wondering if that account is still open.
I do not know the answer to that. I do know some of the background on when this was set up. I do believe that there were some challenges operating the franchise in a positive cash flow on an annual basis. But maybe if we can unmute our Parks Director, Amy Levisic, maybe she can add a little more detail to that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So unfortunately, I'm with Scott on this one. I don't know as much about the financials as I guess I should, but I don't believe any money went into those accounts. I don't believe they ever got into the black.
So I guess what I'm wondering is if that account is still there, should we just close it out?
I would probably say yes, especially since this new Laconia Baseball LLC did not agree to that.
Right. I mean, it's been through 2 owners since then.
Correct.
So it's probably some cleanup paperwork we should do to get that out of there.
We will take a look at that, Counselor, and if there are any accounts that have been sitting there that are dated like that, we will certainly go through the cleanup efforts on them.
Okay. If it's okay, Mayor, I have another question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Amy, I was looking over the list of things we do for game day, which is probably what we've been doing right along, and what they are supposed to do. I was wondering, in the time where we're having a substantial problem with getting people to work and all that, it looks like probably we'll have a few guys up there working quite often, although their games have been canceled, I believe, for this year. So this would be looking at next year to see if, probably they could help with payment on some of this stuff, because it looks like we're providing quite a bit of material and time there. I believe in years past, if there was overtime or weekend type stuff, they did pay for that. But, I think maybe we should take a look at this other group of items that we are dealing with.
Do you want me to do that before we sign this for the next year, basically? Or do you want us to put that on the next version?
Well, this is a 5-year agreement.
Correct.
So, I mean, I won't vote not to do this here, but I think we need to look at where we're having trouble getting people to work and all the items that we're doing. Maybe it could be a volunteer thing that we ask them, but I won't hold up the agreement.
The only issue with volunteering is we have an employee who does this and does it very well. My concern would be to not have the caliber that we have now of our facilities. I would be afraid that something may just go south, if you will, and we wouldn't have the field that we do today.
Well, I'm not talking about a volunteer to do it. I'm talking about them volunteer to help with the cost.
Oh, I understand. I'm sorry.
That kind of a thing. We do need to do a lot of work up there to get rid of the clover and dandelions, because that's being overgrown. So, maybe they could help out with the materials.
We can certainly have that conversation, Council. Again, if you do approve this tonight, it may limit us a little bit, but I think the group really wants to be a positive partner in the community with the city. So I think if we share that with them, we can see if there's any common ground.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hamel. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Moving along to number 20B, which is the city manager contract extension discussion. Section 2 of the city manager's employment agreement provides that it be extended at the end of each contract year so that there is always a full year's contract in place in the event the manager or council decide not to renew. At this time, the council should consider extending the city manager's employment agreement until June 30th, 2022. This report was in fact submitted by the city manager, Scott Myers. So I'd be looking for
Motion to reconsider.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So I'd be looking for a motion here.
I'll make that.
Okay, to extend the contract to the city manager. So made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Is there any further discussion from councilors in regards to this item? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch,
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative. 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Congratulations, City Manager Myers.
Okay.
Under number 20C, this is the request from Laconia Motorcycle Week Association for approval of organized rides in connection with the 2020 Laconia Motorcycle Week. Laconia Motorcycle Week Association has requested approval of the following organized daily rides during this year's Motorcycle Week. The rides shown below are scheduled to leave from Lakeside Avenue in front of Rally Headquarters booth at 10:30 a.m. with space designated in the area by the use of cones and rope. All rides will head out from that location via Scenic Road, Watson Road. The lineup of charity rides will be the following. Sunday, August 23rd, the Gypsy Tour for the Northeast Motorsports Museum to New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Monday, August 24th, 2020, the May West Memorial Ride for pets to the New Hampshire Humane Society. On Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, Bentley Saloon in Arundel, Maine. Wednesday, August 26th, 2020, the Covered Bridge Tour. And Thursday, August 27th, 2020, We Love Laconia Ride. Also on the 14th annual Peter Macris Memorial Ride is scheduled for August 22nd, 2020 at 11 a.m., leaving the Nassau Resort on Weirs Boulevard. This ride is escorted by the New Hampshire State Police. This was submitted by City Manager Scott Myers. I'll be looking for a motion right now to approve the request from Laconia Motorcycle Week Association to approve the organized daily rides during the 2020 Laconia Motorcycle Week as listed above. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Hamel. Thank you. Further discussion from the councilors. Councilor Littman, are you looking to speak or just vote? Okay.
Just vote.
Seeing no requests to speak, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you, councilors. Moving on to item number 21 on our agenda. This 21A is a request to fund renovations at the Weirs Fire Station. And this was submitted by Chief Kirk Beatty. He is requesting funding to make renovations to the living quarters at the Weirs Fire Station. This project began with a request of $60,000. However, due to changes in initial quotes coming in higher than anticipated, the new request is for an amount not to exceed $80,000. The change discussed allows the fire department to add separate male and female restroom and shower facilities. Currently, there is only one shared restroom shower. The total project includes the discussed restrooms, kitchen remodel with new appliances, replacement windows, upgraded heating, air conditioning by using a ductless system for the living area only, new flooring, as well as all electrical and plumbing needed for the project. The fiscal impact would be an amount not to exceed $80,000 from the non-capital reserve. Recommendation from staff recommendation is to approve the request of an amount not to exceed $80,000. This will allow the official bidding process as renovations will begin this summer. I'm looking for a motion to authorize the expenditure of an amount not to exceed $80,000 for renovations to the living quarters of the Weirs Fire Station as recommended, with funding to come from the non-capital reserve account. So made by Councilor Felch, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Further discussion. Councilor Littman, voting or speaking?
Voting.
Okay. I don't want to overlook you again. Seeing no further discussion, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Moving right along on unfinished business, I'd ask for your patience. This looks like a fair amount of reading right here as we work on the budget. So please bear with me.
I move to waive the reading.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I'll second.
Further discussion on waiving the reading. Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. I'm befuddled. I don't know what to do next now.
Go on to the next move to waive the reading.
Moving
Right.
along to 21C. Which is,
No,
no,
go to the second page of that. You have 3 more motions so we can talk.
yeah, right. I thought we were doing the whole thing. You threw me off. It was like a curveball. You buckled my knees. Okay, all right, here we go. So
Move that we waive the reading.
move the second reading of Resolution 2020-06 relative to fiscal year 2021 general fund appropriations. Looking for a motion for that? So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Looking for another motion to amend Resolution 2020-06 to decrease the proposed appropriation from $77,867,772 to $77,693,772 and propose non-tax revenues from $30,556,889 to $30,382,889 with no change to the amount to be raised by taxes. Looking for a motion and a second on it. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Felch. Further discussion? Yes, City Manager. Welcome.
Thank you. So I didn't want to go into the first reading or the second reading, but if you go back to the first page of this agenda item, page 46, and you look in the smaller font in the center, this is where there was consensus 2 weeks ago on staff recommended changes for decreasing revenues in the area of the gas tax, parking kiosks, motor vehicle registrations, park and rec revenue, and police false alarm revenue, increasing revenue and boat tax. And also we made the reductions in the city's bond interest due to the refinancing, some housekeeping changes in health insurance across a couple of departments. We reduced city streets by 90,000. We reduced 16,000 from contingency, and we reduced 12,000 from temporary salary while adding 20,000 to grounds maintenance, with the understanding that we would work to bring you some recommendations on how funds could be allocated to grounds for next season, most likely. So all of that nets out to zero impact to the amount raised by taxes, still makes it a tax compliant budget. So if you vote on the motion to amend that was just moved and seconded, that's what you're amending the budget with. If there were any further amendments to the general fund budget, those could come up afterwards, but you'd be able to move all of these changes in with one motion to amend, and that's what it would entail.
Question. Questions of the city manager. Thank you. Seeing none, I believe we are ready to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Finally, looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2020-06 as amended relative to making general fund appropriations for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yeah.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
Five votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Thank you, counselors. Moving along to 21C, which is the second reading and approval of Resolution 2020-07 relative to making itemized appropriations for anticipated grants for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and terminating June 30th, 2020. I'd be looking for a motion to waive the reading of the resolution in its entirety and to move by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Secondly, I'm looking to move a second reading of Resolution 2020-07 relative to fiscal year 2021 anticipated grants. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2020-07 relative to making anticipated grant appropriations for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Moving along to 21D, a second reading and approval of Resolution 2020-08 relative to making itemized appropriations and revenues for the Sanitary Sewer Fund Enterprise Fund and the Laconia Waterworks Fund Enterprise Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and terminating June 30th, 2021. I'm looking for a motion to waive the reading of this resolution in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Second item on this is looking to move the second reading of Resolution 2020-07 relative to itemized appropriations and revenues for the Sanitary Sewer Fund Enterprise Fund and the Laconia Waterworks Fund Enterprise Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and terminating June 30th, 2021. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion?
That was 08, sir.
Did I miss that?
Said 07.
And that's a mistake there. Excellent pickup. So this is a second reading of Resolution 2020-08. Correction. Any further discussion? I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. The third item is a motion to move to amend Resolution 2020-08 to decrease the appropriation and revenue amounts by $135,950 from $2,501,125 to $2,365,175, with no change to the amount to be raised by taxes or fees. I'd ask for a motion. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Further discussion. Would you like to speak to that, City Manager Myers?
Yes, just very briefly, this would be the second one that we have an amendment to, and this is just tying it up to that the resolution that was presented originally did not line up with the number in the budget, so it was just a transposition error. One side washes out the other, and there's no change to the overall amount raised.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the council? I'd ask the clerk, seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, on this agenda item, looking for a motion to move to approve Resolution 2020-08 as amended relative to itemized appropriations and revenues for the Sanitary Sewer Fund Enterprise Fund and the Laconia Waterworks Fund Enterprise Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and terminating June 30th, 2021. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman, Counselor Littman.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Moving right along now to number 21E, which is the second reading and approval of Resolution 2020-09 relative to making itemized appropriations and revenues for the Internal Service Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and terminating June 30th, 2021. We'll be looking for a motion to waive the reading of this resolution in its entirety and read by title only. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Secondly, I'm looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2020-09 relative to itemized appropriations for the Internal Service Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and terminating on June 30th, 2021. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
You're muted.
Counselor Hamel, you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, I'm looking for a motion to move to approve Resolution 2020-09 relative to itemized appropriations for the Internal Service Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and terminating June 30th, 2021. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Felch.
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Moving along to 21F. This is the second reading and approval of Resolution 2020-10 relative to making itemized appropriations for the Special Revenue Funds, Motorcycle Week Fund, and Ambulance EMS Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, and terminating June 30th, 2021. Be looking for a motion to waive the reading of this resolution in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
That's 5 votes in the affirmative. The motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2020-10 relative to itemized appropriations for the Special Revenue Funds, Motorcycle Week Fund, and Ambulance EMS Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, and terminating June 30th, 2021. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Third and final on this agenda item, we're looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2020-10 relative to itemized appropriations for the Special Revenue Funds, Motorcycle Week Fund, and Ambulance EMS Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, and terminating June 30th, 2021. So made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Councilors, we are moving. As David Bounds might say, we're rocking and rolling right now. So let's keep it going. Item 21G, and this is the second reading and approval of Resolution 2020-11 relative to making itemized appropriations for the tax increment financing district funds, downtown Tiff, Lakeport Tiff, and Weirs Tiff for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, and terminating June 30th, 2021. I'd like to first have a motion to waive the reading of this resolution in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
Shutout, 5-0. Well done. That motion passes. 5 votes in the affirmative. Secondly, we're looking for a motion to move a second reading of Resolution 2020-11 relative to itemized appropriations for the tax increment financing district funds, downtown Tiff, Lakeport Tiff, and Weirs Tiff for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, and terminating June 30th, 2021. So made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Further discussion? Seeing none at this time, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Finally, on this agenda item, we're looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2020-11 relative to itemized appropriations for the tax increment financing district funds, downtown Tiff, Lakeport Tiff, and Weirs Tiff for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, and terminating June 30th, 2021. That's so made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this item, this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor
Gotta be on your
Cheney?
toes.
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Hamel?
Yes.
Counselor Felch?
Yes.
5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Nice job to not only the councilors, but also to city manager and finance director in putting a budget together. Thank you. I always forget the department heads, and I shouldn't, and to department heads, putting together a tax cap compliant budget. Thank you very much. Nice job. It's It's a big lift every year. Well done. Moving along to councilor comments under 22 on our agenda. Yes, Councilor Haynes.
I'd like to just thank the city manager.
Muted.
You're muted. Yeah. Turn up the volume.
Still
I'd
muted.
like to thank the city manager. There was a lot of challenges in the south end.
He's
especially
still muted.
There was a lot of challenges on the south end, especially at Bartlett Beach, and they seem to be resolved. Thank you very much.
Further councilor comments at this time? Councilor Littman, I see your hand this
Yes.
time.
Thank you. I know when you were giving thanks, I think we also want to include the school budget work too, to the appreciation for the entire budget, right?
Yes. Yes.
Any further comments? Councilor Hamel, your mic is open. Would you like to speak?
No, I'm all set. I am curious, though, on the election of the new counselor for Ward 2, when that will take place.
We are going to recess this hearing. No, I'm going to adjourn it, and then we're going to go back and we're going to reopen the previous special hearing.
Meeting.
Okay, very good.
We're thinking around 11:45.
That sounds good. I'll be ready for that.
No, shortly. It's coming shortly. Okay.
Might just be a blank screen, but I'll be ready.
Councilor Felch.
Yeah, I had a couple things. One was I had someone call me with a concern about the island at the end of Stark Street. It was my understanding that it was going to be put back the way it was before. And now it appears that it's just cement and no plantings, no flowers, none of that. So I don't know what happened with that.
So I may have led you astray there, Counselor. I knew the island was going back when we demoed it, and I had shared. So it might have been me that was thinking maybe there's not going to be anything in the center, because I know how much Counselor Hamel loves that when it grows crabgrass and the flowers all die because there's no irrigation there. So maybe we pleased one counselor and upset another counselor. What I did share that we did was we brought the crosswalk down a little bit lower. We also extended that curb line out there. So now it's not as sweeping a turn and cars need to slow down more before they get the running start up Stark Street. And through that island, there's now a safe haven, if you will, for pedestrians. If something happens partway through, they've got a safe place around that raised island to stop. So we think it's much more pedestrian friendly, and it's also traffic calming that cars need to slow more to take that turn onto Stark Street. So if I led you a little bit of astray, I apologize. That's probably on me.
Okay. And the other thing I had is, when do we plan on talking about traffic for Motorcycle Week?
I anticipate we are going to have a meeting sometime this week. It's not Wednesday, but it will either be tomorrow or Thursday or Friday, Councilor Felch.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any further councilor comments? Councilor Hamel.
Thank you. Well, I couldn't let Scott's comment go by without saying something. The 1 foot swath of grass on Court Street on the left-hand side going out needs to be mowed. The people that live in front of it aren't going to be doing it.
I've got my weed whacker in the car. I was going to do it on the ride home as long as we didn't get a thunderstorm.
So maybe they could pull out the crabgrass too along the way. That'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you,
I'll help you, Scott.
City Manager. All right. Any other councilor comments? With that, I'd like to adjourn the city council meeting at 8:35 and 26 seconds.